10 cards rated, day number 66. Someday we'll get to day number 666. I'm still on the last card from yesterday, letting you know that I batch these. I record them all in one day because I'm smart. But if it is Thursday, that means today is the day in the current timeline that I have to go on stream tonight and review every single card in Duskmorn in the form of a speed run and rate them all the same way I'm rating these cards. So if you're interested, come on by at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on twitch.tv Thursday, this whatever date it is in September 2024. But if you're watching this in the future, disregard that message and let's see what the first card of the day is. It's Angelic Gift. 2 mana, 1 and a white for an aura that enchants a creature. When it ETBs, draw a card. Enchanted creature has flying. Fine. It's actually kind of fine. Always has been. Always kind of will be. Replaces itself, which is one of the worst things about being an aura, but if it actually does hit the table, if you resolve this and throw it on a guy, drawing a card is a pretty sweet part of the effect. And in this case, flying is actually a sweet ability to bestow. So I'm going to give this like a 4.8, which most auras will not get, but Angelic Gift is close enough to playable that it's almost average. We'll look at Deep Wood up next, printed in Portal and Portal Second Age. Now, this is 2 mana, 1 and a green for a sorcery. Play only after you have been attacked, before you declare blockers. This turn, all damage dealt to you by attacking creatures is reduced to 0. So, cool. I don't know why you have to cast it only then, right? But who cares? Because, you cast this before you make blockers, and then you still get to make blocks. So it doesn't really change anything. But still, this is a fog. Well, I guess you make blocks, and then, the damage is still dealt to your blocking creatures, right? So there is that. I guess there's that. But, yeah, it's fog. It's just kind of a fog that works slightly different than fog. And that's still actually kind of good because it's another copy of Fog. And you're like Turbo Fog, Commander deck or whatever. But obviously Spore Frog is the thing that's in vogue for the last 10 years. And will continue to be so, I would imagine. And Deep Wood sees no real play. But I do kind of like it. I think it's cool. I like fog effects. I'll give this a 4. Because fogs aren't actually that good. They're just not. We'll move on to Beladros Witherbloom, everybody. One of the coolest cards printed in Strixhaven. 7 mana, 5, a black and a green for a 4/4 legendary Elder Dragon with flying. At the beginning of each upkeep, create a 1/1 black and green pest creature token with, when this creature dies, you gain 1 life. Pay 10 life. Untap all lands you control. Activate only once each turn. Just a blowout of a commander, right? The lowest cost you can get this for is $4. And there are other versions that cost over $10. So there's a reason for that. Really awesome Golgari commander that also goes pretty well in the 99 just because of that, every single turn ability. And it's not just your turn. It's each upkeep, every single upkeep, 1/1 guy. So it'll make 4 creatures, really 3 creatures, and before it comes back around to your turn, right? And then it'll make a creature on your upkeep. So every turn cycle making 4 guys is pretty great. Really is. But the really broken thing about this is untapping all the land you control. That's cracked in half. So easy to see why Beladros is still so expensive to get a copy of. I'm going to give this card a 7.2, which is very high for a 7 drop, but there's a reason this thing is still so sought after, both for 99s and for your commanders. All the things it does are really cool. But Venerated Rod Priest is up next. I almost want to skip this card. This is a single green mana for a 1/2 Phyrexian Druid with Toxic 1. So players dealt combat damage by this guy get a poison counter. Whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell, target opponent gets a poison counter, which is the most broken line of text that has ever had the word poison counter in it. Maybe this is the most broken card that's ever dealt with poison. This card is still $2 to get your hands on, but I think most of that is because of standard. If you want to build this deck in standard, you have to have 4 copies of this. It's $8 for 4 copies of this, and that's actually reasonable. That's really, it's $10 or less, mostly less, for the 4 of, most important card in your whole deck. That's like Pokemon prices, by which I mean that's good. Pokemon is generally affordable in terms of how much it costs to play that game. But as much as I hate, I roll my eyes when they play this on turn 1, and I know they have another one in their hand, but Even if they don't have another one, they have, Tyvar Stand or some Snakeskin Veil. You will die to this. If your opponent's on the play and plays a turn 1, there's not really a whole lot you can do. Even if you cut it down, you're getting a poison counter. So as much as I'm annoyed by this card, I'm still going to have to give it like a 6.2. Not great in Commander, which is mostly what we're, reviewing these cards for. But no, it's a little too narrow, right? It's a little too narrow. Let's go 5.9. Let's go 5.9. But it's so good in these 1v1s that I think it's worth a pretty high score. But if we hit it again, once it's out of Standard, I think it's worth reevaluating. We'll move on to Fell Stinger, though. This is 3 mana, 2 and a black for a 3/2 zombie scorpion with Death Touch. It also has exploit, so when it ETBs, you can sacrifice a creature. And when it does exploit a creature, target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. Cool little guy, man. We always thought this is a cool guy. I know I'm not the only one. That's why I use the royal we there. We always thought it was a good one, even if it didn't see that much play in Standard. One of the cool things about this is that you can target your opponent if you just want them to lose 2 life. If you have a Sheldred in play, Sheldred the Apocalypse, they'll lose 6 life when this card goes off against them, right? But then again, you could always lose 2 life, but have a Sheldred in play, draw the 2 cards, and effectively gain 2 life when the smoke settles and the dust clears off this card, and that's pretty good too. So I've always liked Fell Stinger. I feel like a 3/2 Death Touch is sick. Death Touch is just a good ability. And there's a number of creatures that you don't mind sacking for 1 and 2 mana below it on the curve. So I love this card. It sucks it never really got a chance in Standard. They're just better 3-drops. But I do think it had its spots. It had its little moments. You'd come across it on the arena every now and again. It's a card I respect. So I'm going to give it an honorary 5. Honorary 5 of the day. Fell Stinger. Very neat little dude. What a cute little guy. We'll move on to Demon of Catastrophes, originally printed in Core 2019. 4 mana, 2 and 2 black for a 6/6 Demon with Flample as an additional cost to cast it, sack a creature. This is actually a take on a creature that came before it. And now I can't remember the name of it. But a lot of us, myself included, thought that this would be a pretty good card in Standard. I remember saying that at the end of the day, it's just a big creature that doesn't do a whole lot and has an effective downside. So it might not be good, but I also remember freaking out about it a little tiny bit, right? So we're not all immune, especially myself, to being hype about certain cards. But in the end, this didn't end up doing a whole lot. But that said, there are black decks that turn that sacrifice creature into an upside real fast. But again, even in the end, in Commander, you're just left with a big fat guy that dies to most removal. So you do have to point that out. You want like actual real game-breaking value that synergizes with other stuff, and you're dang, this really doesn't do that much apart from sacking a guy. But I don't know. 6/6 Flample at this rate is still pretty good. So I'm going to give it a 5.1. I'll throw that out there. Maybe it'll be a little bit better because we've got like a demon theme in Duskmourn, right? And like that might make demons better. I don't think so though. So we'll move on to the next one. Oh my God, it's the One Ring. It's the One Ring to rule them all. 4 mana for the Onion Ring. It's a legendary artifact with indestructible. When the Onion Ring enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you gain protection from everything until your next turn. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose a life for each burden counter on the One Ring. You can tap it and put a burden counter on it and then draw a card for each burden counter on it. Turns out you don't care that you're losing life to it. You just want to draw 3 cards by tapping it. This card's disgusting. Most of us did not see coming exactly how good this card was. It looked like a nice take. Apparently the cheapest one is $90. And it's this treatment right here, which is a pretty cool treatment. It really is. But if you just want the normal one, which is this one, it's $120 or thereabouts to pick it up. That's how good this card is. There are modern decks that play 4 copies of this card, even though it's legendary, even though it costs 4 mana. Mostly because you want to reset burden counters. That's why you play multiple copies. But yeah, the card is crazy. You wouldn't think that just tap to draw a card for 4 mana would be good. But it turns out when you tap to draw a card, then tap to draw 2, then tap to draw 3, then tap to draw 4. By the time you're tapping to draw 4, you just are winning. You are winning the game. It turns out this power is worth paying that life most of the time. Just a nasty card. I haven't even talked about the protection from everything. It is important. It's obviously extremely important. Just you basically can't lose the game. next turn after you play this. So you're not skipping your turn. You're definitely not skipping your turn. You're almost time walking the opponent, although you are giving them a chance to like generate board presence and stuff. But you basically just, don't fear anything for a turn. And that's pretty huge too, obviously. But once this thing gets to drawing 3 cards, it's a wrap, So One Ring, I'm going to maybe surprise some people here and give this an 8.9. Maybe even, 8.9. I'll go 8.9 on the One Ring. I should give it a 1 as a meme score, but I don't have the heart. This card is obviously very good. We'll move on. I don't think we'll get a better card than that today. We will get another Middle-earth card. This is Gimli, Counter of Kills. 4 mana, 3 and a red for a 4/3 legendary dwarf warrior with trample. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, Gimli deals 1 damage to that creature's controller. So a reverse Blood Artist. Well, no, it's a reverse Zulaport Cutthroat. Blood Artist cares when anything dies on the whole table. Whereas cards like Zulaport and other cards like it mostly care about your guys dying. But this costs twice as much as those normally cost. So there's that. But it is interesting to set up with like wrath effects, right, and stuff like that. Interesting card. I like this kind of incremental damage. I especially like killing my opponent's guys and dealing damage to them. It's neat, but it is a little bit expensive, all things considered. So that kind of tempers it for me, but I'll still give it a 5.1. I'll still do that. I just really like that line in the text box, like way too much. We'll move on to Devious Cover-Up. This card's annoying, dude. 4 mana, 2 and 2 blue for an instant counter target spell. If that spell's countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. You may shuffle up to 4 target cards from your yard into your library. This was, along with another card for 3 mana, this was the basis of a blue-white deck in Arena that basically, like, never actually played a win condition. Like Devious Cover-Up and the other card that did effectively the last thing this does, shuffle cards from your yard into your library. Were the win condition. You just never deck. You never run out of cards. And that deck was so aggravating, and I'm kind of glad that it never really established a tournament foothold, but you'd see it on the arena every day. And boy, was it irritating. But that said, 4 mana counterspells just typically aren't going to be great. And you have to recognize that. So I'm going to give Devious Cover-Up a 4.7 because outside of the one deck it did that in, it's not great, and it's 4 mana counterspell. At least it exiles, right? Final card of the day is Valorous Steed, 5 mana, 4 and a white for a 3/3 unicorn with vigilance. When it ETBs, create a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance. So I feel like not long ago we covered a card that had an adventure, right? The adventure half is make a 2/2 knight with vigilance, and the creature half is a 3/3 unicorn with vigilance. And so Valorous Steed is just that card. Just all cast at one time. But it does predate that card, so that's probably worth pointing out. This originally printed in Core Set 2021. It's just a drafty card. I can't score it very high at all. I'll give it a 2 because it puts 2 bodies on the table, and that's about it. So hope you have a good one this, Thursday, I guess we're on? We're almost at the end of the week, everybody. We're making it. Living on a prayer, hanging by a thread, and you hang in there. I love you guys. Bye. I'm still recording. It's doing it again. It did this yesterday. If I hover over record, it's like, do you want to stop recording? And if I do press record again, under those circumstances, it doesn't stop recording because the hover message is in the way. So I can't hit record to stop recording if I'm already hovering over record. And that makes no sense, Streamlabs Desktop 1.17.0. When you release 1.17.1, maybe you want to do something about that. Love you guys. Bye.